Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. With us today, happy to have him back because we're talking about three press releases. Bernard Tourillon, HPQ Silicon CEO, trades in Canada, HPQ, trades in the US, HPQFF. For those new to the story, HPQ is a cutting-edge Canadian producer of high value-added silicon products that are sought after by the battery and electric vehicle manufacturers and other industries that we're talking about today, specifically Fumed Silica. And more than just lip service, over the last few years, they've signed multiple NDAs in the EV space. And today they announced another big NDA, this time in the Fumed Silica space. So they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. Bernard, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, George.
Hey, this isn't just Beyond the Press Release, it's Beyond the Press Releases, because we've had three press releases about Fumed Silica in like the last 10 days or so. The project, the first milestone of the reactor, then the fact that CO2 emissions are over 50% reduced, and then the one today about an NDA with the leading Fumed Silica manufacturer. Before we talk about those, why all of a sudden, why three back-to-back press releases and big ones about Fumed Silica?
Well, because it was about time. It was about time I updated shareholder what's going on with this. I mentioned a little bit of my NDAs because there was a lot of balls moving, and they started to move faster as we get closer to the pilot plant being operational. It was just the time.
Well, that's moving fast. So here's the obvious question. I'd love to ask you, who is the leading Fumed Silica manufacturer? I'm sure people have been Googling. I have, but none of us can say, I don't even know. None of us know who it is, but they're leading. How big are they? If you can give us some relative terms, how do they discover us? And then once they discovered us, Bernard, why did they say, hey, we want to sign an NDA with you. We like what you're doing.
Well, how big they are? They're a big player, $1 billion sales a year.
Wow.
They're big. They're very, very big. How did they discover us? It's interesting. In September 2021, we issued our first press release on the Fumed Silica adventure. And there we were touting our 86% reduction in energy need because we eliminated all the chemical byproducts. And it wasn't long after I issued a press release that I got the email from a top executive at that company responsible for R&D. And he mentioned he wanted to have a conversation with me. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll have a conversation. Didn't have that many things to say, but we had a conversation. And, it basically let it know that, if we want to test material, do something, they'll be interested to talk with us. But I didn't push it more at that moment because I didn't have really anything more to do. It's like,
right.
It's surprising. And I think one of the realities HPQ, through the work we've done in the silicone business, we're very high. Basically, if you Google silicone, you'll always find us. We'll be one of the top search level, not because, we've done some extraordinary SOE, but mostly because since it's a mature industry controlled by multiple small number of players that are all worth billions of dollars. They know that people are not going to Google for them, and they don't really bother about that side of it. So it gave us a beautiful opportunity for us to be there. And I'm guessing that, these big companies have a research department. Oh, somebody else is trying a new way of doing Fumed Silica. Anyway, that was that.
Yeah, nice. Now, so you have this conversation.
But nothing happened at that moment. We just have that conversation. Well, as I told you, the reason why it was HPQ is they saw the press release and says they saw our claim that we're going to cut it down by 86%. Okay, maybe, it seems big and all those issues. Anyway, make a long story short, we advanced in the project. As I wrote in the first press release of last week, we did a series of tests, small scale tests, before building the pilot plant. And we started to get some very, very interesting results. And I was having a discussion with the guys at Pyrogenesis, and they mentioned, oh, it'd be nice if we could get sampled material from one of the big players. I remember, oh, wait a minute, I know this guy at a big company. So I shoot an email back, says, okay, our project is advancing. We're starting to have getting close to having sample material. You think it'd be okay if you guys send us some samples? We got nothing to lose. lo and behold, if we didn't finish this, that says, okay, let's sign an NDA. So we sign an NDA so we can start exchanging the material. The NDA is very interesting because it does write, one of the objectives of the NDAs is, maybe we become a supplier. I don't know. It's just the beginning. But one of the points that's really interesting about this relationship is, when we issued our latest press release, I'll just read you a quote from the guy. I saw your latest announcement on the Fumed Silica progress. Looks very promising! Exclamation mark.
Okay, that's saying something, right? Because
that for me is saying, okay, we're on the right track. Now, the reason why I did 3 press releases, the first one, I could have done the first one in the NDAs. The first one was very important. The second one is my strong belief, and this is where we're not just talking about this. We are making that type of material. We are making a material that's hydrophilic. It's very technical in the sense, but it either repels or absorbs water, one of the two. I'm not the scientist. Still, we know the material is doing this. We've done a lot of our own testing, analysis of the material, where it's going. So we're very, very excited about where the material is going, and we're going to have the pilot plant moving forward. So I'm very happy about this, and I wanted to share it. But the reason why then I wanted to talk about the CO2 emission is that what's becoming very, very clear is that those big companies, have massive carbon footprint, because making fumed silica, as I wrote the press release, we're talking about 9 ton of CO2 is equivalent, for 1 ton of material produced. Okay. And 60% of that comes from the fact that their feedstock is silicon metal. Well, our feedstock, is going to be quartz. We eliminate that 60%. So for those that think it's just, pipe dreams, it is not. We are doing some material. We just don't know exactly where it fits in the quality of it, but we will improve the quality of the material. We are doing some material that, if you've seen the image, really looks very similar to fumed silica. So we're at the right stage. We're going to be starting the pilot plant very soon. So we'll have more and more material to test, and we'll be able to adjust and have the back and forth to get it going. I actually believe that entering the fumed silica industry will be easier for HPQ to do because of the specific advantages of the technology,
which are the energy reduction, the CO2 reduction, cost reduction potentially,
and the elimination of nasty chemicals. So it fits all the criteria. So in a certain way, we're talking about allowing a greening of the process, which, if we meet the criteria, there's no downside to what we're doing. There's no more pollution. There's only plus to it. So that's why I find it very, very interesting, because it is already an existing market. It's also a market because of the nature of fumed silica, where our small modular technologies, I think, has advantages. The traditional process, because they're really big, old industry, require massive capital income. So this is very exciting and very, I think it's going to move. I hope it's going to move faster. It never really moves, but I really do, because we're almost there with regard to making the material, and then it's just scaling of the technology, which is something we've learned from experience what to do. There are some things we've learned the QRR that we can translate to this. So I'm very confident about this process, and I wanted shareholders to know. And I also wanted shareholders to know how much we're going to be, revolutionizing industrial manufacturing, and there's a potential to really cut CO2 emission massively. And a final point I also wanted to address is that making silicon metal is the most carbon intensive process in the world, bar none, compared to all other industrial mineral or not. Now, as a silicon manufacturer in the QRR, that could have been a negative, but I'll address that later, because we have ways of resolving this and moving this forward. But in the fumed silica business, just removing this is gangbuster.
It sounds like you're doing to the fumed silica world what you're doing in the EV silicon world, which is reducing energy usage, reducing carbon emissions, reducing the hazardous materials. Is the
Yes.
world?
Yeah,
is the
but
world, go ahead.
no, in the EV space, okay, we are one of the important components that will grow in importance as EV becomes more and more important. In the fumed silica industry, we are it. It's I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Because what I'm trying to say is,
Yep.
and I'm not downgrading at all what we're doing in the silicone business, but in the silicone business, we are doing one part of the technologies that will allow the entirety of the EV industries to move
Right.
forward. Very important, very big market. In the fumed silica business, if our technology works, we're doing it for the entire industry.
And the
That's
fumed
different.
silica market is right now. I mean, EVs are out there, they're coming, they're going to explode over the next 5-10 years. But fumed silica is in 10th gear right now. Right?
Exactly. It's a mature product that may even having more application now because of the way we're doing it, because it's sort of limited by the capacity to do it. In the EV space, we don't know who's going to win the technology war. So we don't know exactly what the percentage is going to be. Is it going to be like 5% SIO? Is it going to be something else? We don't know. We're in the right space with the right area. We've got the right technologies, but that's one thing. And this one, it's just, we just have to match what's being done, okay? We don't even need to do it better. We don't even need to make a better product. The silicone, we have to match, do a better product, which we are doing. I'm not worried about that. You understand the differences in the two things. And we're not just talking, we're doing it. And that's why I waited till now to start announcing it. Because, next step is going to have the pilot plant to keep moving and doing tests.
How big of a market? We've talked about it kind of in the past, part of the deck, but there are a lot of new people who might be watching this, or at least a refresher for the existing shareholders. How big of a market?
I don't, it's a few, it depends. If we're just talking fumed silica, it might be like a $2 billion a year market worldwide. But if you add to it precipitated silicon, it becomes a $4 to $5 billion a year market. So it's a big market.
Big enough. Bottom line is big. And just to kind of summarize what you said there, the EV battery silicon side is going to offer potential significant growth opportunities in the next 5-10 years. So you're excited about that. But the fumed silica world we can enter as soon as we're producing. We have the potential to enter right into the fray, right as it's a mature market, and become a quote unquote major player.
Yep. Either us or whoever, acquires the technology from us, if we do decide to go that route. And the reason why I make that difference is that in the fumed silica, my understanding, I could be proven wrong, my understanding is, if we make the material, our costs are going to be by default so cheap, okay? I'll just give a ballpark example. To make fumed silica using traditional process, you need 2N silicone, okay? Well, we pay for 1 ton of 2N silicone, that's $6,000 a ton. That means their feedstock to start the process starts between $3,000 to $5,000, okay? Our quartz starts between $100 to $200.
Massive.
Energy, 115,000 kilowatt, 15,000 kilowatt. So it's really more, can we really make the material of the same quality, okay? And where we are in that process, when you show images of what we've done to people in the industry, their honestly says, looks very promising. Now, that doesn't guarantee that we're there, but we're on the right R&D track.
Well, if the chief, I forget the guy's position, but if the chief officer if the chief research officer of the LFMSM says it's very promising with exclamation mark, we're going to take them at their word. By the way, I want to rewind the tape a little bit. when I asked you about that, you said, that's why I wrote it furiously. You said, well, unless someone acquires our technology, I don't want to let that slip by. Is there a chance you might
Listen,
want to have the fume silica side acquired
the Fumed Silica business is within 100% subsidiary. It was done since the beginning. Okay. And the belief that if we get to where we are moving forward, okay, we don't know what's going to be the best way for HPQ and its shareholders to extract the benefit from the technology. Is the solution to make it a standalone company, publicly traded? Pretty soon it'll have, it'll have what it needs to be there. Is it going to be to sign a joint venture with a big partner that's going to help us, just do like in big pharmaceutical, it's like the one that did the vaccine for COVID was a small company that signed up with a bigger company, but at the end it worked very, very well. I'm agnostic at this stage, but I have to be realistic to say that it might be such a technological leap that people are going to say it doesn't want to come into it. It's not of the same scale. It's not the same thing, but think about this. Microsoft didn't develop ChatGPT. ChatGPT got developed, Microsoft went after it. Okay. Now, at a much smaller scale, I believe in what we're doing in the Fumed Silica can do this. As I believe eventually what we're doing in the silicone metal business could also happen.
So you're the open AI.
Well, I just wanted to use that as an example.
Yeah,
we're sort of like, who knows? We might end up using AI just to fine tune how we do the production of our material. There's still going to be an interesting level of R&D. And also the other interesting part is that the pilot plant cost is financed 66% by the government. So,
Bernard, if the leading fume silica manufacturer, found us through Google searches of press releases and other materials, is it fair to assume, or do you expect other fume silica manufacturers to discover us?
There might, but it really depends on the openness and the open-mindedness of the companies. I'll give an example in the silicone industries. Okay, I know of two big players. One of them doesn't communicate to me, and the other one, they're in that field too. The executive VP of R&D wanted absolutely to meet with me, and I met with him in France. And he liked what we're doing, what we're moving forward. So it's like, it really is a question of corporate philosophy. There's some corporate philosophies that are only going to say we're only going to look at the issues when it's there, and some others saying, okay, what's out there?
Yeah.
That's sort of like my analysis of it. So by us communicating, by us doing videos, by us issuing press release, that is also the idea behind them. I was honestly surprised because when we issued the first press release about the 85% energy reduction, I got a few journalists that called. I was very surprised that I didn't get any calls announcing, because if you take a look, we're talking about, potentially if in Europe they use all this technology, in Europe, what the carbon cost is what, an 80 euro a ton. We're talking about reducing 500,000 tons of CO2 emission per year. Multiply that by $80. Those are big money amounts. The carbon taxes and the carbon things are going to play more and more into investment decision and technology decision.
So the fume silica side is not as green driven as the EV and battery space, but it does have its green catalyst there as well, is what you're saying.
I would say because the catalysts are reversed. Okay, in the sense that in the EV space, we're talking about reducing carbon emission related to internal combustion engine cars being driven. Okay, in this industry, the material, okay, because if you look at the studies that they do about those type of material, they say that the material made helps reduce greenhouse gas because it's more efficient. There's a lot of things where you can do to be more efficient, but the process to make it is inefficient with regard to greenhouse solution. So as as in the EV, we're talking about removing another technology. And this one, we're just saying, okay, we're going to continue the same product. The end buyer won't see a difference, okay? But the manufacturing process and the environmental issues is going to be massive. You know, all of these companies we're dealing to have public commitment by 2030 to be carbon neutral. Well, this is the type of technology that, if it works, and I do have to use the if, because, you know,
Not that you have major doubts.
not I have any doubts that we're going to reach it. You know, not going to have any doubts going to reach it, but, you know, I am, you know, I'm under the supervisions of the regulators. So,
Devil's advocate, Bernard.
mhm.
Two things. There are some investors, and it's the FUD guys, but, you know, okay, let's address a little bit, who say two things. One, well, maybe there's so much focus on fumed silica by Bernard now because the QRR side isn't working, or maybe he's not as confident that it's going to work. I want you to address. And then the second one is, can HPQ do both QRR and fumed silica? And maybe they should only be focusing on one and then moving to the other. So how do you address both of those concerns?
Well, the first issue is completely it's a non-issue. Okay, if there was problems with the QRR, I would be obligated by regulatories to issue press release. You know, so, you know, we do write tentative. Our timelines it might not be always perfect, but that doesn't really mean that there's an issue. I wouldn't people try to read too much into reading the tea leaves. Okay. They read the tea leaf, how, you know, how I behave, how I smell, what shirt I'm wearing. Like, it's not that. Read at least the material we give, which is the last test we did was very, very good, very positive. We were moving in the right direction. And, you know, we will do the next test when we do the next test. So that's that part of it. What was the second question again?
Can the other?
Oh yeah, focusing
Right.
on one thing, focusing on just one thing. Well, it's focusing on the fumed silica and focusing on this hasn't at all affected what we're doing. Those are two different projects with two different projects. It's, if anything else, it will eventually require that I get, you know, more staff into HPQ to manage those issues. But so far it's working very, very well. And, you know, it's I get the point. I get the point. People said, you know, just finish freaking something and just get it moved. I get that point. But that's not how R&D works. If you only focus on one thing, there might be something unexpected that happens that makes it not work, and then you got nothing. Okay. So as part of a strategy to de-risk the R&D, you try to have different projects that you can manage, which have enough closeness to be there, and so that you have an offset, and you can also have news flow. Okay, exciting news to come out at a time when there's less news flow. You know, I think I mentioned this, when you start R&D, the first phases, you get a lot of news release at the beginning because you get a lot of information, and as the project matures and matures and matures, it takes a little bit more time. So the good news is, as the QRR projects mature into looking at the next phase, which is going to be going commercial, the fumed silica will be entering the R&D phase as doing material to get, you know, offsetting material. So it'll be two things. Plus, we also have the hydrogen thing. That'll be a lot later more.
You mentioned de-risking, and that's a topic you and I have talked about for a long time. Every stage of the QRR, every little success, every little milestone, you'd say, hey, this continues to de-risk. This continues to de-risk. How much has the fumed silica side of the company, the progress there? I mean, you're going to be pre-commissioning, commissioning, a startup, testing a pilot plant. You're saying by Q4 of this year, 6 months from now, you know, 4 or 5 months from now. How much has the fumed silica side de-risked the entire company now from a shareholder point of view? Not that you're giving financial advice, we're not doing that, but, you know, before, people could have said, it's a one-trick pony. If something goes wrong, the QRR, something goes wrong, it's going to blow up. You know, the FUD people. Now you've got two tracks that are going, and the hydrogen, but you have two tracks that are going really strong here. In your opinion, in your feeling as a CEO, as one of the biggest shareholders of the company, how de-risked, how comfortable do you feel at the amount of de-risking you've done with these developments over the last 10 days?
I feel very comfortable because there's other de-risking that I'm not, we haven't talked too much about. There's the work we're doing in silicone for batteries. That's mostly led by Novation, but we're doing phenomenal strides in that part too of the business. So, I've always said the company is not the market, and the market's not the company. And I think that's one of the biggest problems there is that people make that type of view. I understand why, as a large shareholders who've paid, because I didn't sell my options when I exercised them, so I paid the taxes, so I'm actually underwater with many of those shares. If you make the math, it's almost equivalent to my salaries I ended up using to pay for all these things. So as a big shareholder, I understand the market pain, but I've been through this. It's a bear market for what we are, the type of companies we're doing. But at the same time, we're in the most exciting phase of there ever been, for the very simple reason. CO2 project like that we're doing have interest. There is going to be money for it. There is going to be money to develop and bring these projects forward. There's going to be government money. There's going to be government grants. There's going to be multiple people want to come in. There's going to be just a carbon tax reduction or the green effects can play significant, and will play significant amount into this. So, I understand the market frustration. I understand that. I bought some shares in the market. It's not because I wanted to do an act of generosity. It's because I believe in the potential of the company to move forward. I believe, we believe so much in it. When we voted our option, we voted some option 53 cents and $1. We didn't vote them let down. So, because the company is so much advanced, but I understand the frustration of people that seems to say he has a nice talk about it, but we're actually walking the walk. I'm relooking now. I'm going back to our press release, and you know what? Over the last 12 months, we've been pretty consistent at keeping up what we said we had to do.
Yep.
We've been pretty consistent, and we're going to continue to be that consistency. So we haven't changed our story. We haven't moved the goalpost. The goalpost. What's the goalpost in QRR? QRR, we're validating the technology. That's moving forward. Fumed Silica, we're validating moving forward. Hydrogen, we didn't talk too much about it. Silicone battery initiative is advancing much more than people think. I don't see where I'm moving the goalpost. Maybe I'm blind.
No. If you were, I would be calling you on it. I got to be honest with you. I would say, hey, you said this, and now you're saying that, and now you're shifting to this, and I'd call you. I would call you on that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted this interview. I wanted to make it very, very clear. I didn't issue those 3 Fumed Silica press releases as a distraction. I issued them because I wanted shareholders to know and understand that Fumed Silica could be as big as what we're doing in the QRR.
That's saying something. And I'll end off with this. Again, not financial advice. I'm not talking about HPQ, but let's all remember something, because a lot of people ask me about other companies too. Hey, what's going on with that company, ABC, XYZ? Because the small caps are in there, and it happens, right? 2000, 2008, 2015, here 2022, 23. It's a cycle. Every 7-8 years, we kind of go through this. And the one answer I've always said to people is, remember, Warren Buffett built the biggest investment portfolio, investment company on the planet in the history of the world by buying undervalued companies, by finding the companies that were mispriced. I'm not saying HPQ is mispriced, so nobody go out there and say, George said it, hey, he told me to mortgage my house. 0. Make your own decisions. But always remember that. So sometimes I see prices in other companies that I like. I got to tell you, I bought Facebook in the 90s. I bought Google in just over 100. I bought Tesla 105-ish, right? Sometimes those opportunities come, and at the time, people on social media were complaining and freaking out and yelling. And I said, you guys can freak out all you want. I'm going to pick up this cheap stock. So I want to end with that. I just wanted to remind everybody that this is potentially where opportunities come out, and not make an evaluation call on HPQ because we can't. I won't. I want to make that very clear. But always remember what Bernard, I think you said it best. The company is not the stock market, and the stock price is not the company.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, Bernard. Congratulations. Look, I think I speak on behalf of a lot of shareholders that love this trio press release that came out on the Fumed Silica side. I think it's great news, and we'll see how that evolves going forward. But for now, congratulations on the milestones, and can't wait to have you back in the near future, I hope.
You know I can't comment on that.
Hey, but I try anyways, right? Thanks, Bernard. Thanks.
All right,
buddy.
thanks. Bye.
For everybody at home, you've been watching or been listening to my podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Bernard Tourillon, CEO of HPQ Silicon. If you want to find out more information about the company, get to the profile page on Agoracom if you hear about it for the first time. Otherwise, get to the company's main website, do your deep dive due diligence. Thanks for joining us. Have a nice day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom small cap video.